The book of Job is one of the most profound and mysterious books in the entire Bible. It addresses one of humanity's oldest and most difficult questions. Why do the righteous suffer? In this poetic and deeply philosophical narrative, we are taken behind the scenes into both the spiritual and human dimensions of suffering. Job is not just a book about pain, it's a book about the character of God, the perseverance of faith, and the limits of human understanding. The story opens with a powerful statement. Job is blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. He is wealthy, respected, and blessed with a large family. From the outside, he appears to be the model of a godly man whom God has clearly favored. In the heavenly realm, Satan, meaning the accuser, appears before God. Does Job fear God for nothing? Satan asks. He argues that Job is only faithful because of the blessings he's received. In response, God permits Satan to test Job, allowing him to strip Job of everything: his wealth, his children, and his health, though he may not take his life. And so begins Job's descent into suffering. In just a few moments, Job loses all his livestock, his servants, his sons and daughters, and finally his health, becoming covered in painful sores from head to toe. His wife urges him to curse God and die. But Job responds with a stunning declaration of faith. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? Earlier, he had said, "The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." These verses reveal a key theme of the book. True faith remains, even when blessings are gone. Job does not understand what's happening. He is devastated, but he does not reject God. This raw, honest faith forms the foundation of the story. Three friends arrive to comfort Job: Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. At first, they sit in silence for 7 days, an act of compassion. But when they begin to speak, their words turn harsh. Each friend insists that Job must have sinned to deserve such suffering. They argue that God is just, and therefore, Job's pain must be a punishment. This is where the book becomes more than a personal story. It becomes a theological debate. The friends represent a retributive worldview. If you are righteous, God will bless you. If you suffer, you must be wicked. But Job defends his integrity. He knows he has not sinned in a way that would justify his suffering. His speeches become increasingly desperate as he pleads with God for answers. Job's honesty in his prayers is striking. He doesn't pretend to be okay. He questions, laments, and even accuses God of being unjust at times. In Job 13:23-24, he says, "How many wrongs and sins have I committed? Show me my offense and my sin. Why do you hide your face and consider me your enemy?" Job teaches us that real faith includes wrestling with God. Doubt, lament, and grief are not signs of weakness. They are part of a deep, authentic relationship with the divine. As the dialogues continue, a fourth voice is introduced: Eli, a younger man who becomes angry at both Job and his friends. Elihu rebukes Job for justifying himself rather than God, and insists that suffering can be a form of discipline or refinement, not necessarily punishment. His words begin to shift the perspective, preparing us for God's response. Then, in chapters 38-41, God answers Job out of a whirlwind. But instead of explaining the reasons for Job's suffering, God responds with a series of questions. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me, if you understand. God speaks of the universe, the stars, the seas, the animals, all of creation. His point is not to shame Job, but to reveal the vastness of divine wisdom and the smallness of human understanding. God reminds Job that there is a larger, unseen purpose at work in the cosmos. This moment shifts the entire conversation. Job's suffering wasn't about punishment or sin, it was a test of integrity, permitted by God but orchestrated by forces beyond Job's comprehension. God never reveals the cosmic dialogue that took place at the beginning, and Job never learns why he suffered. Yet Job responds with humility. Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. This is the turning point. Job doesn't get the answers he hoped for, but he gained something better, an encounter with the living God. His faith is no longer based on blessings or theology, it's based on direct relationship. In Job 42-5, he says, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you." In the final chapter, God restores Job's fortunes, doubling his wealth and giving him more children. But the restoration is not the moral of the story. Job was not faithful because he expected rewards. He was faithful because he trusted in God's character, even when he couldn't see the reasons behind his pain. Suffering is not always punishment for sin. Job teaches us to bring our full emotions to God. God's wisdom is beyond human understanding. Our perspective is limited, but God sees the full picture. Spiritual maturity is refined through suffering. Job's faith was transformed, not removed through hardship. Sometimes the answers we seek are not given, but God gives us Himself. The encounter with God is the real resolution, not the explanation. We must be cautious about judging others' suffering. Job's friends were wrong to assume a direct link between sin and hardship. God honors faithfulness, even when it's tested. Job is commended, not for perfection but for perseverance. In a world filled with suffering, injustice, and unanswered questions, the book of Job is more relevant than ever. It speaks to those who are grieving, questioning, and feeling abandoned. It reminds us that God is big enough for our doubts, patient enough for our questions, and loving enough to walk with us through the fire. Job's journey teaches us that even in our darkest moments, we are not alone. God is near even if silent, and in the end, it is faith refined by fire that becomes most precious.